Howdy mates, how are we doing today? Good afternoon. Here's a part 2 video for Sunday, May 29th, 2022. So right now, we're still over at the historic Spanish Point. Now we're just overlooking the Little Sarasota Bay. So, just past that little stretch of land that you're seeing across the bay is where it will meet up with the Gulf. But aside from that part, if you look out in the distance too, like you see that building right there in the foreground, and in the background you see those two resorts, or I shouldn't say resorts, but condos. Well, that is the Spanish Point restaurant, and it's actually at that very dock where I have my dedicated artificial reef placed, which is in honor of my grandmother, Luann, and her sister, Susie. So I may actually pay a little visit over there after visiting here. But a neat feature about this particular park is, you know, it does appear to be a little more elevated, you know, in terms of elevation. The thing is, though, that elevation isn't fully natural. A lot of it has actually been due to man's activity. You know, as I mentioned in my last video, we actually had Calusa people who inhabited these parts during the Manasota Period, which essentially spanned from 500 BC to 900 AD. So you figure that's about 1400 years in which the Manasota Period existed. So during the time, this particular stretch of land that I'm standing on, or I should say sitting on, this was very well inhabited, and it was actually a favorite spot, especially when it came to fishing and hunting, and even launching from here for any other expeditions. Because a unique feature about this spot is, you know, you have your mainland, but the thing is, Spanish Point, you know, geologically speaking, is called a spit. Now, I'm not talking about spit as in saliva. A spit is basically a piece of land that juts out into the water a bit further. A great example of a spit that I can think of right off the top of my head is, you know, the state of Massachusetts. How it has that extensive land reaching further out into the Atlantic, and kind of resembles someone flexing their bicep. That's a great example of a spit. However, though, the Spanish Point is a very much smaller version of that. So, back on the point of why this is so elevated is a lot of the natives, they created something called middens. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are more familiar with the term mounds, but there is a slight difference between the two. See, a mound usually has a more geometric pattern, and mounds were oftentimes used for burial and ceremonial purpose. But a midden, on the other hand, was mostly used for waste disposal, whether it be old pottery, human waste, or just general trash. So essentially, a midden is more like an equivalent to a landfill, in a sense. I mean, that's essentially what it is. Just a landfill is more of a contemporary term that's used nowadays. Well, what happened was when the Webb family was settling here back in the 1860s, they found these shell middens. And as a matter of fact, there's a set of stairs just past the bamboo over here that is like an exhibit that shows you the window to the past, which is basically a glimpse of a cross-section of a shell midden. And most of them were constructed by mollusk shells. So like lightning whelks, oysters, you name them. Those were all used. So that is really the reason why this piece of land seems a little more elevated than everything else around here. And oftentimes the natives did that so they could have protection from any incoming storms, you know, especially coming from hurricanes at the time. It's quite neat. And to my left is actually a cottage, which I believe belonged to the Webb family. Don't think you can go in there for touring, but you can go into the porch, which is quite nice. Just imagine what it would have been like here, you know, hundreds of years ago, prior to all this development. It would have been absolutely gorgeous. I wanted to, as a wrap-up, wanted to show you guys this really neat ponytail palm right here. So even though it's not directly native to Florida, it's more native to Mexico, it's still able to coexist in the state since it's not really that much further away. But a unique feature about the ponytail palm is, of course, its expanded caudex, which essentially is just a fancy way of saying the bottom of a trunk. But this expanded caudex is mostly used for storing water. And because of that, oftentimes this palm is sometimes even known as the elephant's foot palm. Because as you can see, the bottom here resembles looking at an elephant's foot. Yeah, this is what they look like once they reach full maturity. It's really cool. And another spot too here is the Sunken Garden too, which actually has a little fountain right in the middle. So if you haven't checked out this area already, it's well worth checking out. It's a bit of a hidden oasis in the midst of development in Sarasota and Osprey. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks. See ya.